It's Wednesday, July 31, and this is your Barbados Today Morning News Update. Thanks for joining us. I'm Fernella Wedderburn. Some former directors of the Urban Development Commission take offence to recent statements by the Prime Minister that the state-owned organization took over properties of vulnerable Barbadians. Prime Minister Mia Mottley, addressing this year's Day of National Significance celebration, promised that her government was moving swiftly to reverse some decisions made under the last administration, which left over 500 urban residents without title to their homes and lands. But one long-standing member of the former board who spoke to Barbados Today on condition of anonymity said the suggestion that the last administration, and by extension the board, did something wrong to persons who came for assistance and those properties now had to be returned was inaccurate. The source explained that the state acquisition of houses that the PM said were either fixed or repaired never happened under the UDC boards that she referenced. The Lodge School has been ordered to pay more than $9,000 in compensation to a former general worker by the end of August. Chairman of the Employment Rights Tribunal, Christopher Blackman, handed down the ruling on Tuesday in favor of dismissed worker Keith Lewis. Emmanuel Joseph has the details.
The Blackman-led tribunal was unanimous in its decision that the claimant Lewis had been unfairly dismissed. Speaking on behalf of the three-member body, Blackman ruled that it is contrary to all proper norms for a letter of dismissal to be issued prior to the Board of Management approval. He said the tribunal strongly deprecated the seemingly cavalier approach by the board as to how Lewis's matter was handled. The tribunal also recommended that the board of the Lodge School reviews its rules of governance. It also expressed concern that Lewis's employment was terminated by a subcommittee of the board and in breach of all the conventions and norms a day before he was due to go on vacation. Lewis was hired on March 10, 2008 as a temporary general worker, but a hand-delivered letter dated July 23, 2014 advised him that his application for the permanent position of general worker was unsuccessful. The board had alleged that over the years, Lewis was given several verbal warnings relating to his work habits and one written warning dated March 1, 2011 from then Secretary-Treasurer of the board Judith Murrell, which particularly cited his non-compliance with the requirement to work to 4:30 p.m. In granting the former general worker compensation, the ERT took guidance from those sections of the Employment Rights Act which address minimum notice and basic pay. The tribunal also handed down another judgment Tuesday in which it upheld the unfair dismissal claim of former acting senior settlement officer with First Citizens Bank, Deborah Brathwaite. The tribunal chairman said her compensation will be determined later and a written detailed ruling will be delivered in September. While the claimant admitted to breaching the bank's policy of processing transactions to personal accounts by staff, the tribunal ruled that the financial institution's termination procedure was fundamentally flawed. Emmanuel Joseph for Barbados Today.
Police investigations are underway into reports that an unknown person or persons purporting to be Minister of Health and Wellness, Lieutenant Colonel Jeffrey Bostic, have been contacting local businesses by telephone seeking to solicit funds on behalf of persons in need of urgent medical attention overseas. The ministry, in a release via the Government Information Service, made it clear that it does not solicit funds from the public in this manner, and persons should therefore report any suspicious telephone calls of this nature to the Royal Barbados Police Force. Minister Bostic also expressed shock that anyone would seek to impersonate him to defraud others and assured the public that the matter has bbeen reported to the police. The CARICOM Development Fund is being challenged to find a new method of raising capital to help member countries fund projects. It's coming from Prime Minister Mia Mottley, who proposed that the CDF issue special bonds to ordinary citizens in order to get a return on billions of dollars sitting in commercial bank accounts throughout the region. Mottley was addressing the 8th meeting of contributors and development partners of the CDF at the Accra Beach Hotel and Spa on Tuesday.
And if we can't get this equation correct, then we are going to underprovide and underserve our potential. I hope that this meeting will allow you to reflect and refine these possibilities, to allow us to see the issuance of CARICOM growth and resilience bonds. For if we are able to attract even just 5% of the savings within the region, then we are in the vicinity of 2.5 billion US, which is 25 times the amount that this CARICOM Development Fund now currently has.
Chief Executive Officer of the CDF, Rodinal Suna, said the organization embraced the idea of issuing bonds. However, he explained that the move would take the organization to a level of operation that far exceeds its current position.
So we have to put all of these details in place before we actually make a firm commitment. However, the Prime Minister has made it very clear that she would like to see some definitive progress made on this in time for the intersessional meeting taking place in Barbados in February next year. So we now have that timeline that we need to work towards. So we need to move aggressively towards doing the preparatory work. In that regard, we have already started working with the CARICOM Secretariat to define conceptually how this instrument will be shaped. We have also been having discussions with our investment managers who would assist us in launching it when it is eventually designed. So we are embracing it, and we are rising to the occasion, to the challenge that has been put to us with respect to growth and resilience bonds.
There's regional and international news after this short break.
Barbados Today, news you can trust.
To news from our regional neighbors, the Minister of Health in the Bahamas, Dwayne Sands, says the public should not be overly concerned with the mosquito-borne Eastern equine encephalitis virus. It comes on the heels of reports of a rise in the virus in Florida, after several sentinel chickens tested positive for the virus, which can spread to humans via infected mosquitoes and cause brain infection and swelling.
The number of deaths in a country as big as the United States is about 7 to 10 deaths per year. That's a far cry, and it's something that there have been no human cases certainly reported in Florida or anywhere nearby. This is a virus that seems to be found in the animal population, primarily. What we have a real problem with that hasn't caught on as well as it should is the fact that many of us are not getting our children vaccinated for measles, mumps, rubella, and other treatable, preventable illnesses. Last year, more than 100,000 people died of measles.
And on the international scene, UNICEF makes an appeal for $170 million in additional funding to combat Ebola, as an unprecedented number of children are contracting the deadly virus in northeastern Democratic, that is, Republic of Congo. UNICEF says since the start of the outbreak in the region a year ago, 2,671 cases have been recorded so far, with more than 700 being children. More than half of the affected children are below the age of 5.
We are 2 days before the one-year milestone of the Ebola outbreak in the Democratic Republic of Congo. This is a wake-up call. There must not be a second-year milestone. When I left, there were 12 new confirmed cases. 5 were alive and will have the chance to access treatment, but 7 had died in the community. This is bad. Having this number of community deaths means we're not ahead of the epidemic. Colleagues and communities on the ground are fighting the outbreak tirelessly, but we need desperately international community to back us up.
And that's news. But for the very latest, visit us at www.barbadostoday.bb. You can also subscribe to our e-paper, email updates, and like us on Facebook, and sign up for our breaking news alerts via WhatsApp. We're also on Izumi Media and bus terminals, as well as screenplay at supermarkets and gas stations near you. You can also hear us on Mix 96.9 FM and Capital Media HD 99.3 FM. I'm Fernella Wedderburn. Good morning.